Hey, how's everybody doing today? This is Mark Brody on the next episode of Coffee Talk with Brohawk. And today I am very honored and privileged to have Anthony Rubio as my guest. Anthony, can you tell our audience a little bit about you? What are you doing these days?
Hey, Mark. Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, sure. I'm happy to give a little rundown. What am I doing? Don't have a lot of time to stop and think. So let me let me think real quick. What am I up to these days? Let's see. So I'm still working with the PTMA. So I'm on the board there, and I'm sure we could dive into some of that later. I am the director for a contact center organization as well. And I'm also the president and CEO of Modern Leader, which is a coaching and development company. I work a lot with small businesses as well as individuals who are trying to level up in their career or transition in their career or just start a career. So do a lot of
Yeah.
space there. It's where I spend the bulk of my time. And on my free time, I've been trying to lose these last pesky 10 pounds. Sorry for another
Hey,
time though.
wait, when you find the magic bullet, share with the rest of us, please. Excellent, excellent. Well, you've definitely been busy, over the last couple of years, and I love the fact that you're developing your own brand as well, with Modern Leader, and really have that niche of wanting to help others level up. And I love that about you because you're always so giving back to the community that gave so much to you. So that's awesome. Um, First question here for you though, as a contact center leader, what are the toughest challenges that you're experiencing today, and how are those different today versus what went on pre-pandemic, and how do you talk to those when you're coaching and developing others?
Man, that's a great question. I think that on itself could be an entire episode. But to kind of split this up a little bit, there's to me one of the most important things about leadership is the culture that you build for your team, right? I think making sure that people are engaged. Part of that is making sure that they trust their leadership team, that there's some psychological safety, that they can speak freely and share what's on their mind. When you're in person, it's a little easier to do that, and I say a little but I really mean like a lot because you
Yeah.
can pick up on verbal cues, nonverbals. You're walking by somebody's desk, you can realize when maybe they don't look like themselves that day. They look a little bit more stressed out or nervous or what have you, and you can stop in and check in on them. And those nonverbal cues are not there anymore now that we're in this virtual space. So one of the things that's on my mind, that's been on my mind throughout the pandemic, is how do you rebuild that culture in this virtual space now. So that's really, to me, the biggest difference is that you can manage people from anywhere, but connecting with people and really building an authentic human connection, that's the part that has changed from my perspective. So really working to build that. How do we do that? That's I think the $1 million question right now. So leveraging technology has been a big part of it. There's so many different tools today that you can use to connect with people virtually and make it engaging and interactive. Creating these virtual workspaces to me is amazing. And maybe I was a little bit behind in technology before and I didn't realize it, but there's so many different virtual, whiteboards and workspaces where you can collaborate together at the same time. And it's bringing some of that together, as if you were still in the office, even though you're not anymore. So
Yeah.
different things like that. And then just figuring out how do you switch over some of your in-person things, like here in San Antonio. We had like Fiesta at the office, right? I don't know if everybody's familiar with
Yes.
Fiesta, but it's a big deal in San Antonio. So, having chicken on a stick, probably not something we can do anymore, right? We're not on the office. But figuring out how do you transition that into a virtual space. So those are the things that we've kind of been just trying out over the last 2 years. And then the other thing is kind of keeping keeping the distractions to a minimum while working from home. And I say that as my dog here is he's trying to figure out what's going
Yay,
on.
there
So
you go.
he's like where are we? So just figuring out how to pivot and acknowledge those things, but not get distracted by them, I think is another challenge.
I love that we've just now had a first. We've had our first puppy on a coffee talk with Brohawk, and I love it. He's adorable.
Oh, he'll be around. If he gets too engaged, I'll invite him to leave the room. But
It's all good. It's all good. So one of the things that I really like that you just touched on is, you know, back when I first started, it was all about managing people and managing where they are, what they were doing. Then it evolved into being a leader and inspiring, and creating that vision for your teams. One thing you just said that really struck with me is now you need to be a connector, and create that connection. For people that are on your teams, not on your teams. Um, and I love the way you put that. Can you dive in a little bit, about what it means to be a connector?
yeah, for sure. To me, in the most genuine and authentic, meaning of the term, it's really just caring genuinely about people and letting them see that. I think a lot of times at work we talk about, it's not personal, right? Things are not personal, it's business. But so much of it is personal because we're impacting lives of other people. And I think being able to acknowledge that, we're all humans first. At the workplace, we have different titles, which just indicate our roles and responsibilities. But at the end of the day, we're all there to do a job. We all want to do the best that we can. I have yet to meet somebody that says, I want to go in and just bomb today. Like, I don't want to do a good job.
Yes.
For the most part, we're all trying to do the best that we can. We're learning as we go in some aspects, and we're challenging ourselves to grow more. So I think just being able to genuinely connect, remain curious about what's going on in the lives of other people. We are, and this is kind of where there's been this paradigm shift. Like, we are more than just our title, right? Some people say, well, you don't even know anything about me. I am whatever my title says I am. Like, that's all you need to know. That's what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Today, it's important to acknowledge that we are whole people, right? We're not just whatever function we're there to serve, and allowing people to bring their whole selves to work. It's interesting because I have worked with companies that people don't know anything about each other, and I've worked with companies that people almost know everything about each other. And obviously, there's that kind of that fine line, right, that you don't cross of professionalism, but knowing what somebody's hobby is versus not knowing anything about them, it really changes the dynamic. Part of being able to build trust is self-disclosure, knowing a little bit about the person, right? If you're expecting me to trust you and vice versa, I have to know who you are. Otherwise, how do I know I can trust you? So I think, just being able to build those genuine connections by acknowledging that we're all humans. And, whenever we're not at work, we all kind of struggle with the same things. We have to figure out, how's the yard going to get cut? Who's washing the dishes? Did I throw the trash? Did I disconnect the iron before I left? Right? We're all human, and we all deal with those same things. Whether I'm the president and CEO, the director, or whatever my title is, like, I have this dog sitting right next to me. That's a distraction. So that I have to figure out, how do I handle that? And, so we all deal with the same things, and we're all humans. And I think that part of being able to build good relationships is having that connection. And if you don't relate to somebody on any other level, sometimes you work with people, you have no common interests and things like that. It happens, but we're all human. That's a connection that we can't take away from each other. We're all human. We all have to eat. We all have to sleep. We all get tired. So there's just those day-to-day things. If you don't have a common interest, you at least have that common connection where we're all human and we all deal with those things. So that's a good launching pad, at least if you don't have anything else. Like, start with that, right? Like, how are you feeling today? Are you tired? What's going on, right? And it's interesting how much more you can connect with others if you just start with that baseline of being humans.
Anytime I go into a store, it's pretty interesting. Um, whether it's down here in Texas, we all know HEB. But for
Yes.
those of you who don't know HEB, it's an amazing experience going in to a grocery store. Whenever you go into HEB, one of the first things that I do when I get to the checkout line is, I make eye contact with the cashier and I ask how their day is going. And I've had a couple of cashiers that have said, oh, gosh, it's a rough day. It's a rough day because it was a busy time of year at that time. And I asked them, hey, stop what you're doing. Okay. Step away, take a deep breath, regroup. It's okay. It's going to be okay. And they just look at me and they're like, that's the nicest thing that anybody's ever said to me. And it's like, going back to that human connection, if you expect somebody um, to provide you with the ultimate customer experience, shouldn't you be able to provide them at least a decent human experience?
Yeah.
Is kind of the way that I look at it. So I love your the way you frame connectedness and being a connector. And that's awesome. So how would you characterize what leadership is versus what leadership isn't in today's contact center? And we kind of just talked about that. But is there anything else you want to go ahead and add to that?
No, absolutely. I think one of the biggest changes over time, I think, has been this kind of commanded control environment. As a leader, it used to be, let me just tell everybody what they need to do. And that not only was acceptable, but it was appreciated, right? There was a generation of workforce that liked knowing, just tell me what I need to do. I'll go out, I'll do it, I'll give you my best, and, we'll move on. The workforce has shifted from that environment to where now people want to be engaged. They want to be involved in the decision making. They want to be able to give feedback and input, which I feel personally is like it's a gold mine, right? If you can get, if your leadership team is, let's say, 40 people, but your workforce is 1,000 people, and you can get 1,000 minds all worried about the same problems and ideating about the same things, that's a win, right? So I
Yes.
personally love that there's this kind of mind shift where people are saying like, hey, like, I don't need you to just tell me what to do. Like, I want to help. I want to get involved. So it's extra brain power and, from my perspective, and a lot of the solutions that I see that leaders and companies that I work with get to these solutions, they're coming from the front line. They're coming from the main group, the people that are right in front of the issue, the problem on a day-to-day basis, right? They have a different lens because they're like, well, I hear what you're saying, but why couldn't we just do this? And you're like, oh, yeah, why not, right? So I think that is one of the biggest shifts is that the workforce today doesn't just want to be told what to do.
Yeah.
This mindset has shifted to where like, hey, I have opinions, I have ideas, and I want to share them. And I think that that's one of the biggest changes is making sure that we're taking the time to really get people involved. And sometimes that takes a little bit longer. It's harder to kind of get the thoughts of 1,000 people over, 50 people or whatever, what have you, but it is really worth it. So I think that figuring out how to connect more, how to remove these silos that exist at the workplace. And don't get me wrong, the silos are helpful for certain things, but when it comes to, and to elaborate on that, the day-to-day responsibilities of the work, I think it's important that people know what those are. But when it comes to, solving the business issues or leveling the business up, I think it's a great opportunity to involve everyone, the front line in different areas to figure out how do we get to the best solution. So to me, that's one of the biggest things that has changed is we don't really lead by just managing people anymore. We lead by connecting with others and creating an environment where there's enough psychological safety for people to tell you how they really feel. That's tough sometimes. Sometimes
It
the
is.
way people the way people really feel it's completely different than the way that you want them to feel. And I think that
Yep.
sometimes it's hard to get people to really say what they want to say because they're worried about how it might be received. But once you show them like, hey, this is a safe place, you can say how you feel. Obviously,
Yep.
we appreciate if you're respectful, but you can tell us what's on your mind. I think that that's where you really start to see the change. And the great thing is that people today, and I'm speaking kind of in broad strokes here, but for the most part, people want to share their feedback and ideas and thoughts. And to me, that's a big shift that we can use to the advantage of everyone, to the front line, to leadership, to the business and then to the customers that we serve, because the more people that are focused on a problem, the better solutions that are going to come from it.
Yeah, it used to be, when I first started in the industry, like moons and moons ago, um, it used to be, the brown envelope that contained your paycheck at the end of the 2 weeks was enough. And if you didn't like it, then sorry about your bad luck. Um, and it's evolved to these days, really, you know how can I as an employee feel valued? And if my manager, if my supervisor, if my director, VP, whatever, is willing to take the time to listen to what I have to say, then that creates some reason why I'm doing my job. And taking it a step further, if as a leadership culture, you can come full circle, with letting people know, hey, I heard what you said, I heard the feedback, and then this is what we've done with it, and this is what we haven't been able to do with it. And they never want to hear, well, we tried that before, it didn't work, so we're not going to do it again. That's the thing that drives people absolutely nuts. But yeah, I love your point about really genuinely investing in those conversations to understand what the mind of 1,000 people is thinking, and focused on the same problem that you as a leader are trying to solve. Excellent. So what are your thoughts um, about employee experience being separate from customer experience? Do they really work independent of one another, or do they need to have a more of a symbiotic relationship?
Yeah, I love that question. It's a it's an interesting one because I feel that as a leader, you're serving two different customer bases, right? You have your internal customers, you have your external customers, and sometimes we focus a lot on the external customer experience, which is great, right? I mean, without the
Yeah,
external customer, then none of us are there, right? If we don't have those
exactly.
externals. So I think that's very important. But the internal customer experience is also something that's very important. Every day we make a decision to be with the company that we're with, right? It's, most of us are not tied to a contract and things like that. And if we are, they come up at some point, and we
Mhm.
have the opportunity to make that decision. Do we want to stay where we are or not? Specifically in the contact center space, I think we can all say the shelf life of the cycle of a contact center frontline employee is very short. Maybe 2 years, you're lucky if you get 3. There's a million different contact centers that are always hiring. So looking at the experience of the internal customer, which is the frontline representative, is really important to making sure that you have longevity in that relationship. So I think that from like an employee branding, the hiring and recruiting process, all those things, today we really have to look at what is that experience like for the applicants, people who are just applying, who never work here, and the people that do come in. What does that onboarding process look like? And is it an experience that's a pleasant one? I think there was a time where just getting people through the door, giving them a real quick training, and putting them out on the floor was kind of the status quo. It's what most companies did. And it was sink or swim. If you figure it out, great, and if you don't, sorry about it. Today it's not the best approach in my opinion. We really do want to take the time to build a good onboarding experience, starting with the values and culture of the organization. I think that's a part that a lot of companies today still miss. They want to give you the technical skill, and because there's so
Mhm.
much that needs to be given, you don't really get to share the culture and the vision, mission, values of the organization. And unfortunately, that's what people are deciding if they want in the first 90 days, right? Do I connect with this organization? Does your why connect with my why? Because I can, answer a phone anywhere. Right? There's a million call centers, but where I'm answering the phone is what matters. And where the rubber meets the road internally is, do I believe in the vision, mission, and value? Do I align with the culture? Do you see me as a human, right? Those types of things. So I do think that they're two separate processes that have to be looked at individually, and we have to be willing to invest in both equally if possible, right? What is the experience like for the external customer, but also the internal customer. Part of that is for a long time, a lot of contact centers have just been looked at as cost centers, right? We're like, well,
Yes.
They're very expensive to operate. We have to hire a lot of people. They typically account for a large part of the organization, and we're kind of just capped there. And
Yep.
we don't have a lot more of money to invest, and we need to get them on the phone as quickly as possible. But if we really just look at that from the opposite side, like, how much is it costing us to replace as many people as we're having to replace, whatever that turnover looks like? If you can decrease that by 5% or 10% a year, by increasing the engagement and the connection to the company, it's going to be a win, right? That ROI will be there. So I think taking the time to just kind of question those old paradigms, like, wait, is this really a call center that is a cost center, or is it actually saving us money, even if it's not revenue generating, because it's keeping more people here? The longer that they're here, the better that they know the business and the service that we're offering, which means our customers are going to be more satisfied. They're going to get what they need, which is going to help us with our first call resolution and all those different things, and really kind of flipping that on its head. So they are, to go back to the main point here, they are kind of two separate tracks to me. And I think the underserved one a lot of the times is the internal customer.
Excellent. Excellent. No, that's a great way of looking at it. You know, that they really have to go along parallel paths up until the point that they need to cross. Um, and it's when they cross, it's really because a customer needs a problem, but you have a well-trained agent that can go ahead and address the concerns that that customer is actually calling about. And I mean, these are your brand ambassadors, for your organization. So why wouldn't you invest in them? So I love that. I love that point. Um, Now, talking a little bit about developing people and you know folks that are looking at contact center or leadership in general as a career path for themselves. Um, for folks that are looking to embark on their first leadership journey, or they're at a level they plateaued, but they want to go ahead and continue to move forward in that journey, what would be your top 3 or 4 recommendations for people looking to become a leader or level up, as you said before?
Yeah, I think continuing to remain curious is important. So with that one, I'll say questioning your own paradigms, right? Like, what do I believe today as a leader, or what do I believe leadership is? In the past, I've coached different people, and one of them really stuck out to me. And as we were talking, they had just become a leader, and they were sharing with me some of the frustrations of the things that were going on in their day to day, which it happens. Everybody has those things that come up. And what I started to pick up on was a lot of the things that would bother them or would kind of frustrate them throughout their day were the interruptions that came with leading people. I told them, well, share with me how you define like leadership. Like, what did you think you were signing up for versus like what you're doing? And through those conversations, what we learned is they really didn't want to lead people. They were interested more in just managing like a program or a process. So that kind of servant leadership wasn't really for them. So I think that first and foremost, it's really about, identifying like, what do I believe in today? Does it align with what people are looking for or what they need out of their leaders today? Is that something that I really want to do? Is that a capacity in which I want to serve? So I think identifying, is this the right type of role for me? And what's your why behind it? If the why isn't that you really like to help people, then maybe there's another position that's better for you. So I think really just understanding your why, and are you kind of ready to sign up for really just being a servant of the people that report to you, I think is important. A lot of people think that, especially when you're looking from the outside in, if you're in leadership, like, oh, I hear this a lot, like, oh, well, I can make my own schedule and I can take lunch whenever I want. And I'm like, where do I sign up for that? Because I haven't found that yet. Most of the
Exactly.
time, you know, when you're looking at leading others, it's a passion. It's something that you enjoy, and because you enjoy it, you make some personal sacrifices. You know, you work a schedule that maybe isn't the ideal, but it's what works best for the team, or you know stay a little later or come in a little early so that you can get those things done. And your lunch is pretty much whenever your schedule allows for it. So I think understanding that it's not that is important too. So understanding your why and making sure that your why really aligns with the role that you're considering, I think is important. How do you do that? Well, I think getting a mentor is you know kind of point to one, understand your why. Two, get a mentor or somebody that you can talk to and figure out, is this the right thing for me or not? Sometimes just having that sounding board is all you need. Sometimes you do need some insight, but sometimes it's just, let me talk to a you know neutral third party to just kind of hear me out and tell me what they're hearing, I think is important and
Yes.
helpful. That'll be the second thing. And the third thing is just really remaining curious and always wanting to learn. I'm a lifelong learner. Every single year, I do a kind of a reflection time and a SWOT analysis, and I figure out what are things that I need to brush up on. What's something that this year I want to make sure that I am stronger in, and then I hope that kind of, or that helps me inform of what I'm going to study that year. And sometimes it's formal classes. Sometimes it's just I listen to more, you know, videos or TED Talks or read more
Mhm.
articles on the topic. But I think it's important to always look at like where are my opportunities so that I can continue to pour into others. So those are the three things that I would advise.
Excellent, excellent. I think the being curious and always asking why are so important. Um, you know, we've been in leadership a while now, and too often I love the way that you shared the example of the person that wanted to be managing projects, as she didn't really want to be a leader, but she saw being a leader as a segue to being able to manage those projects, and being able to get that, and as a leader being able to get him or her, sorry, onto the right path. That's awesome. um, Now, this last question really isn't a sales pitch for our organizations. You lead PTMA down in San Antonio, and I lead ACCA here in Austin. And interestingly enough, you're going to be speaking at our ACCA event
Yeah.
here in October. Um, but not a sales pitch for our associations, but what do you see as the value that networking associations can bring to the contact center community?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's really important. So I have been a part of associations since about 2013. So for a
Mhm.
couple of years now, I've been a part of them.
Yeah.
There's a couple of different advantages. One of them I feel is being able to be around like-minded individuals, people who are, you know, ideating and solving similar problems without that groupthink. Sometimes we don't even realize we're in a
Yes.
groupthink when we work, you know, with people for so long. So just kind of stepping out of that and being able to talk with people who are in a similar mindset and space that you are, but maybe looking at things from a different perspective is important. So I think you get that out of working for an associate, or working with or partnering with an association. The other thing that I would say is really awesome is being able to just speak freely with about kind of the things that you're struggling with at the workplace, because everybody there is kind of just trying to figure out problems to go back and find the best solution. So I think being able to find, you know, what the kind of the best idea is outside of having that group think is something that you can get really easily from being a part of an association. So those are kind of the top two things: is one, being able to make sure that you're not in the group think, and two, just kind of getting different ideas all at once, versus, you know, spending an hour in a meeting where you get stuck on something. You know, at the
Yes.
association, it's really more like, hey, let's just kind of keep going, keep talking. So I
Yep.
love the idea of just being able to share ideas and talk with a lot of different perspectives all at the same time in an hour and a half or what have you that you're a part of the association, or meeting with it. But also understanding what's trending and what's happening. Sometimes when you're at the workplace, you kind of get caught in, on the kind of hamster wheel, right? You're just kind of going through the motions and trying to get things done and keeping leveled. And it's hard to take time to just kind of stop and think like, okay, what's happening in the future? What do I need to be thinking about? Being a part of this association, it kind of forces you to do that, because when you're there, they're typically giving you topics about, here are the things that are up and coming. Here are the things that we're starting to see. And it kind of flags it for you. You're like, ooh, I need to take a minute and really start to think about that or talk about that at my workplace. So I think just being ahead of the curve is something that's really helpful. And an association is a great way to ensure that you're doing that.
I love that. Especially, the part about, looking outside of your four walls, to see things through a different lens, or have other people help you see things through a different lens. I love that sentiment right there. Well, we're getting to the end of our coffee talk there, Anthony, and got to the section of this discussion where I call it the speed round. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, what fact about Anthony would people be surprised to learn about you?
Let's see. It's supposed to be a speed round. Let me speed it up here.
It's all good.
I like to karaoke. A lot of people don't think that, but yeah, I don't know that I'm good at it, but I enjoy it.
What's your go-to song?
Ooh, I sing a lot. I only do like Spanish music, and I do more like rancheras because that's like where my range is. Gosh, I'll have to owe you that. I have like 5 go-to songs, and I can't think of them right now. Maybe I'll sing on the next episode.
Hey, there you go. Hey, we'll have to have somebody do a recording. You'll have to text it over to me sometime. Oh man. So what is your ideal off the grid location? Kind of, get away from everything and disconnect to reconnect type thing.
It always depends on the season that we're in. So I have horrible seasonal allergies. So in like the winter months, I'm like, take me to Alaska, somewhere where maybe there's not as much like cedar and things. But so it really just depends on the time of year. But my currently, realistically what I do, it's really not a destination. It's more, I really enjoy going on hikes. So I used to go, every day of the weekend. So Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, I'd make it out to a hike. Not so much these days, but that's where I like to go and just get some fresh air and thought. So either I'll head out to somewhere in San Antonio or, New Braunfels, sometimes Austin. I'm surprisingly, I've been in Texas my whole life, and I'm barely starting to get to Austin more regularly. So learning a lot of new places out there.
Well, we'll have to give you more reasons to come up this way. So.
Yeah. And a lot of these places don't have good signal, so I do consider them being off the grid, even though technically they're
not. Anytime you can kind of get with your own thoughts, and it's a place that you're comfortable with, it's awesome. It's awesome. And with like this summer, in Central Texas, I mean, it's been felt like 110 most days. Who wants to be outside? Oh man. So what product jingle gets stuck in your head every time you hear it?
Ooh, a product jingle. Let's see. There's one that I was just thinking about. So there's like this like avocado commercial, and at the end it always says like they're like avocados for Mexico. And there's like this little jingle, and I don't know why every time I see an avocado, it comes to me. And when I hear it on like a commercial, like I have it stuck in my head the rest of the day.
There you go. That's awesome. That's awesome. So Anthony, just finally, if someone wants to pick your brain on leadership or anything else contact center related, want to learn a little bit more about what Modern Leader is about and how you could potentially help them or their organization, how can they get in contact with you?
Yeah. So through Instagram, my handle is modern_leader and then the number one at the end of it. So that's an easy way, or I can be emailed at arubio@modernleader.net. So those are the two probably easiest ways to get in contact with me. Sorry, he's like, what's going on up there? So
Excellent. And what is his name?
this is Braxton. So yeah,
Hey, Braxton.
he's super energetic right now. So I'm like, I felt like
Yes.
he almost dropped the printer over there. So like, okay, maybe I should just listen to you for a minute.
It's all good. It's all good. Well, Anthony, thank you very much for your time. If anybody reaches out to me directly, wants to get an introduction, I'd be more than happy to go ahead and introduce you to Anthony. If you like this section, this episode, please go ahead and like it, and follow Brohawk Solutions on Instagram. I'm sorry, on YouTube, and definitely follow Modern Leader on Instagram as well. Anthony, thank you very much. Hope you have a great rest of the day.
Awesome. Thank you. Goodbye.